Admit all. Hello, welcome everybody.
It's very nice to have everyone here. For those who turn on their cameras, appreciate that too. It's nice to see some faces. If sometimes you can't, there might be circumstances, that's okay too, I understand. We're all probably gonna play, I'm sure, that thing with the mute button when people wanna speak, so I'll be waiting for that delay when we go, but it's just great to have you here. Laura does amazing sessions, so even myself here as the co-pilot, I'm always looking forward to that. And just thank you for joining us.
Yeah, this is awesome. Oh, we've still got people joining, which is amazing. Welcome everybody. We're so grateful to have you here. This session is Intro to Human-Centered Design Thinking. So if that is the session you are supposed to be in, then amazing. If it's not, we're still grateful to have you. If you want to leave, I'll be sad, but I'll totally get that too. So just to sort of welcome that the session is Intro to Human-Centered Design Thinking. We've got a few people still kind of coming in, so we might just do a little quick sort of intro and hello before we officially get started. I just plopped a link in the chat there. So if everyone doesn't mind clicking on that link, it will take you to a space called Mural, and I will let Martin explain how to use Mural because he's brilliant.
Well, I think that what I find the key point in Mural is it would seem a lot less complex as long as you know how to zoom. So if you look for the zoom icon, that really, quite honestly, is the key for me. So you can actually just master that, a couple clicks back and forth, so you can actually see things. Because at first it seems like you're just seeing a very small, very thorough laid out plan. So you can zoom in different spots. You're just using your arrows to get around. As we proceed through it, I mean, the next more complicated step will be just going to grab some sticky notes, which should be pretty self-evident, and you can basically attach them to different spots to have your comments on there. But really, I can't say enough how just do the zoom. Don't be afraid to zoom in and out, and I think you'll master it.
Yeah, perfect. I see we've still got some more people, so I'm going to continue to block that link in the chat. If you guys are sort of going like, okay, how do I zoom? The easiest way is if you have, when a member of our team corrects me on this all the time, I call it a cursor, but I don't think that's what it's called, the little roll thing on your mouse. That will actually help you zoom in and out. And then in the bottom right, if you don't have that, there's a plus and minus symbol that you can use that will help you zoom in and out. And as Martin said, the zoom is sort of the magic to Mural.
Looks like a little magnifying glass there. Oh no, sorry, I was just gonna say, it looks like a little, if you're on the Mural, it looks just like a little magnifying glass. So if you jump towards that, you see it. And the only thing, sorry, Laura, I was just gonna say for intros, so we can also talk if you want to jump in, or if people are more comfortable, you can let us know maybe what program you're in, or you know, what area you're residing in terms of Barrie, outside of Barrie, all those other things, or anything else you want to throw in the intro, so you can do it on the chat if you prefer as well.
Yeah, amazing. We've got lots of intro stuff. So if you could put sort of your program in the chat, and then also in the Mural, you'll notice if you hit the right-hand side, there's an outline, which has like steps on it. So if you hit step 1, there's also an intro question there, which is just, what do you think change making is? So if you could sort of do both of those things, get where you're from or what campus, I think, and your program in the chat, and then what do you think change making is in the Mural. We'll be rocking and rolling. I think we've like slowed down now with people coming in. I think. Yeah, so maybe we can get started here. Before we do, a few little kind of quick housekeeping things. My name is Laura Koza, and I'm very excited and grateful to be your guide and host here today with the wonderful and lovely Martin Rashan. We both hail from the Center for Changemaking and Social Innovation, and we are here today to talk to you about human-centered design thinking. So we're going to be looking at how do we look at a problem from the needs of the people who are actually experiencing that problem, and take our own biases out of the equation. So we're going to dive into that. This session is an hour and a half long, so please expect to be here till about 4 o'clock. And on top of that, we ask and invite you that this is a pretty collaborative and engaging session. So I always like to say, I invite you to be fully present, however that shows up for you and whatever that looks like for you. So if that means putting your phone on silent and putting it away, if that means sort of just being here, using a pen and paper, however that shows up for you, I would be very grateful for that full presence here today. And then the last sort of quick little housekeeping thing is that we will be using both Zoom and Mural today. So Zoom is a platform where we can chat and connect and talk. Mural is an engagement platform where I can hear all of your thoughts and ideas in an anonymous way. So what I always offer, if you have two screens, amazing. You can put Zoom on one, Mural on the other. If you are not that fancy, there is no problem. You can either minimize both to try and get both on your screen, or just completely minimize your Zoom and have your Mural open so you can still hear us, but you can sort of engage in whatever way is best suited for you. Lastly, Martin is our lovely co-pilot today. So if you have any tech questions at all, if you have any thoughts or comments or anything, don't hesitate to plop it in the chat or direct message Martin, and he will do everything in his power to help and support you. And so will I, but he's way better at it than I am. Did I miss anything?
That's so kind. I definitely wouldn't say that. I think, Laura, you're amazing with this stuff as well. But by all means, anything in the chat, that's what I'm going to do. I'll be keeping an eye on there. So please don't hesitate to just throw a question at me as well.
Awesome. He's the best. Amazing. So that's fantastic. So I see people are sort of slowly trickling in. So I'm continuing plopping that Mural link in there so newcomers can see it. So if you've just arrived, please hit that Mural link, and that's where we will be engaging today. If you have any questions, hang out with Martin in the chat, and he will make sure to help you that way. Okay, before we completely dive in, something I want to take a second to do today is to honor that the traditional lands that I live, work, and play on. So something that has been really important to me over the past little while has been creating this connection with my land. It's this relationship that I have with this land, with my land, I think is probably one of the most important relationships that I have in my life. And my ancestry comes from Eastern Europe. And actually, my grandparents fled from Eastern Europe to Canada for the sake of safety. So I am honored to be in Canada because it was this safe haven for me and continues to develop this relationship of love. And what I am finding is that the more time I am spending in this virtual space, the more I am really appreciating and connecting with the land that I live on. So I live on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee people. And I am honored to be a settler on these lands and learn and grow from the ancestors that came before me. If a land acknowledgement is in your practice, I invite you to write one in the chat. If it's not in your practice and you would like to know more, there's a fantastic website called nativeland.ca. And that'll, if you type in where you're from, it will actually tell you the treaties and the lands that you're on. So you can learn a little bit more about that as we go. Okay, so today we are learning about human-centered design thinking. I am very honored to be here and share with you. And I think that I'm really cool. I think I have a lot to offer. I think I have a really neat voice. However, no one in the world wants to listen to me speak for an hour and a half. That just doesn't happen. So if possible, this session's meant to be really collaborative, and it's meant to be for you guys. So if you have questions, if you want to interject, please do, because the more you do, the more you will get out of it, and the less you have to listen to me speak about this topic, and the more it will be targeted to what specifically you are looking at. If bandwidth allows, I am always very grateful for people who have their cameras on, because I get to see your beautiful faces and get those reactions and feedback, in real time about what people are doing. So if you are able to, I really would appreciate you having your camera on. If you are not able to, something I always really like is the reactions button in Zoom. So if there's something that I say that connects, or you want to know more, or you love, or you want to celebrate, or have, the reactions button in Zoom is a really great way to still engage and not have your camera on. If anyone doesn't know where that is, it's in the bottom. You'll see that sort of smiley face with a plus sign. And there's lots of fun things you can do here. I think my personal favorite is either the heart or the celebration one. So there's lots of cool things there that you can play with. Awesome. Any questions before we get started? I'm trying to love and having some problems in settings, I think. Yeah, so what I do know about the reactions button is you get more reactions if you are in the most updated version of Zoom. So if you're in an old version, sometimes it doesn't give you as many. So if you finish this session and only have 1 or 2 reactions, it might be well worth your time to update your version, if that is how you say it in tech terms and words. Not my forte. I see some really beautiful and familiar faces here. Hello, special shout out to some of the ECEs on the call. Grateful to see you, and I even think there's some rec students. Lots of wonderful faces here, so grateful to have you. As we get in, I have this warm-up question here, and I see, what do you think change making is? And people are writing some really beautiful things. Change making to me means engaging in making real change for the better for our global village, making a difference for the better within your community, bringing like-minded people together for different causes, knowledge to bring change which helps people socially, love that, making an important change, making a change in your life. These are so beautiful, and I thank you guys for sharing them. And what I like to offer about change making is the sort of overarching definition of change making is someone who desires change in the world and gathers knowledge and resources to make that change happen. That's like a kind of a technical definition. What I like to think of change making is making a conscious choice to leave the world a little bit better when you go to bed than when you woke up in the morning. So it's making intentional actions every day about how am I going to create positive change in my world, in my community world, in my global world, in my organization, and however that shows up for you. Recognizing that, yes, Elon Musk is a change maker. Yes, Greta Thunberg is a change maker. But a change maker is also someone who offers this real deep and sincere gratitude to the people who might not get that very often and are really taking the time to make positive change in their community. Why I like to start with this question is when we think about change making, we think often a big part of change making is starting to recognize the things that we want to change, starting to recognize some of the problems that we see and making intentional actions towards solutions. Human-centered design thinking is a framework in which we can use to create solutions. And human-centered design thinking, if you can believe it, puts the humans at the center of the problem and of the solution. So I'm going to summon all of you if I'm amazing at mural. So when I summon all of you guys, that means you can all see exactly what I see on my screen. So hopefully right now you'll see this big orange box that says the process and the Stanford D School of Thinking Design Thinking Process. So this framework invites us first to find a problem and empathize with this problem. So when we say to empathize with the problem, we mean to empathize with the people who are experiencing the problem. Now, this is tricky because we often think about the problem from our point of view. There's this famous story about the food bank, and the food bank was getting low engagement, and they said, okay, what can we do to help people utilize our services in this community? And they said, you know what the problem is? People who would use the food bank don't have the money for transportation to get here. We're out of town, So we need to get bus tickets. So they created a program, spent a ton of money, gave a bunch of bus tickets to everybody, free bus tickets to anyone who wanted to use the food bank. And what they realized was their engagement was not increasing. It had nothing to do with the transportation. So then they went out and they asked some people and said, why are you not using these services? And people were saying things like, I'm ashamed. I don't want to. I would rather do this. And just by asking some questions to the people who are experiencing the problem and empathizing, listening without judgment to what they had to say, they started to realize that the problem was entirely different than what they thought, and were then able to define a new problem based on the needs of the people who are experiencing it. So using empathy to define a problem, then offering ideas on your definition of the problem before you prototype and test is the simple concept, not simple, but the concept of human-centered design thinking. Any questions, thoughts, comments? Martin, yeah.
It's just, what you've said is just so amazing, because the one thing I just want to share is the assumptions that we make. I've worked with groups of lawyers where we were looking at pipelines as to barriers to becoming judges. And the assumption was that everyone wanted to be a judge. But really the gist of it that ended up being is that the lawyers actually said, we don't want to be necessarily judges because we're having such a deep impact in our community from the lawyer perspective. So it's that, so what you've just said, it just rings such a bell for me. It's really amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for that contribution. I think you hit the nail on the head, and I also want to honor, and I'm so sorry if I say your name wrong, Kira, and if I do, please correct me. But Jessen, his comment is that it's about getting the best solution. And it's about really thinking about putting people in the solution instead of systems, organizations, pre-existing frameworks, which is what we do currently. There's so much complexity in creating a solution that sometimes I think we lean into the complexity of the systems, organizations, whatever, and forget to think about the people. So this is really about what are those people thinking? Any other thoughts, comments, gut reactions, questions about the sort of general gist of this? Okay. Before we continue in too much more conversation, I always like to offer, there's this amazing video, it's a TED Talk, and truthfully, it's way longer than any video I like to show in these workshops, but it's so fantastic that I really do think it's worth our time to watch. It's about 10 minutes. So I'm gonna screen share, we're gonna watch this video. Anyone done studies on how it affects worker productivity in manufacturing? I love that question, Joshua. And I'm not sure I can speak to a study, but I can speak to 1,012 examples. One of our colleagues at the Center for Changemaking and Social Innovation, his name is Adam. He used to own a design company, and he has a great story about an employee that he had who was just like not showing up to work, not outputting, not like completing his outputs for the time, and how he used this process to really connect with that person and increase their productivity. So I can look into case studies for you, but I do know that there's lots of stories out there that reinforce this concept. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna screen share. It is a long video, but it's fantastic. My invitation always when I share videos is to just like soak it all in. Whatever that means for you, sit, enjoy, let it wave over you. And I will front load you that when we're finished watching it, my question will be, I just want to hear about your gut reactions and how it connects and what showed up for you. So You can think about that as you're watching it, but mostly just let it wave. Also recognizing that tech is not my sweet spot, so I always appreciate an extra little bit of empathy as I'm setting it up. Can you guys all see my screen? Martin, I can see you. Yeah, okay.
Yep, I can see it. It looks good on my end.
Perfect, and hopefully you can hear it. Oh, what is going on? Okay.
I've got a great idea. It's going to change the world. It's fantastic. It's going to blow your mind. It's my beautiful baby. Here's the thing. Everybody loves a beautiful baby. I mean, I was a beautiful baby. Here's me and my dad a couple days after I was born. So in the world of product design, the beautiful baby is like the concept car. It's the knockout. You know, you see it, you go, oh my God, I'd buy that in a second. So why is it that this year's new cars look pretty much exactly like last year's new cars? What went wrong between the design studio and the factory? See, today I don't want to talk about beautiful babies. I want to talk about the awkward adolescence of design. Those sort of dorky teenage years where you're trying to figure out how the world works. I'm going to start with an example from some work that we did on newborn health. So here's the problem. 4 million babies around the world, mostly in developing countries, die every year before their first birthday, even before their first month of life. It turns out half of those kids, or about 1.8 million newborns around the world, would make it if you could just keep them warm for the first 3 days, maybe the first week. So this is a newborn intensive care unit in Kathmandu, Nepal. All of these kids in blankets belong in incubators, something like this. So this is a donated Japanese atom incubator that we found in a NICU in Kathmandu. This is what we want. Probably what happened is a hospital in Japan upgraded their equipment and donated their old stuff to Nepal. The problem is, without technicians, without spare parts, donations like this very quickly turn into junk. So this seemed like a problem that we could do something about. I mean, keeping a baby warm for a week, that's not rocket science. So we got started. We partnered with a leading medical research institution here in Boston. We conducted months of user research overseas, trying to think like designers, human-centered design. Let's figure out what people want. We killed thousands of Post-it notes. We made dozens of prototypes to get to this. So this is the Neo-Nurture Infant Incubator, and this has a lot of smarts built into it, and we felt great. So the idea here is, unlike the concept car, we want to marry something beautiful with something that actually works. And our idea is that this design would inspire manufacturers and other people of influence to sort of take this model and run with it. Here's the bad news. The only baby ever actually put inside the Neo-Nurture incubator was this kid during a Time magazine photo shoot. So, recognition is fantastic. We want design to get out, for people to see it. It won lots of awards, but it felt like a booby prize. I mean, we wanted to make beautiful things that are going to make the world a better place, And I don't think this kid was even in it long enough to get warm. So it turns out that design for inspiration doesn't really, I guess what I would say is that for us, for what I want to do, it's either too slow or it just doesn't work. It's ineffective. So really, I want to design for outcomes. I don't want to make beautiful stuff. I want to make the world a better place. So when we were designing Neo-Nurture, we paid a lot of attention to the people who are going to use this thing. For example, poor families, rural doctors, overloaded nurses, even repair technicians. We thought we had all our bases covered. We'd done everything right. Well, it turns out there's this whole constellation of people who have to be involved in a product for it to be successful. Manufacturing, financing, distribution, regulation. Michael Free Pass says you have to figure out who will choose, use, and pay the dues for a product like this. And I have to ask a question, VCs always ask, well, sir, what is your business and who is your customer? Who is our customer? Well, here's an example. This is a Bangladeshi hospital director outside his facility. It turns out he doesn't buy any of his equipment. Those decisions are made by the Ministry of Health or by foreign donors, and it just kind of shows up. Similarly, here's a multinational medical device manufacturer. Turns out they got to fish where the fish are. So it turns out that in emerging markets where the fish are, are sort of the emerging middle class of these countries, diseases of affluence, heart disease, infertility. So turns out that design for outcomes in one aspect really means thinking about design for manufacture and distribution. Okay, that was an important lesson. Second, we took that lesson and tried to push it into our next project. So we started by finding a manufacturer, an organization called MTTS in Vietnam that manufactures newborn care technologies for Southeast Asia. Our other partner is East Meets West. This is an American foundation that distributes that technology to poor hospitals around that region. So we started with them saying, well, what do you want? What's a problem you want to solve? And they said, well, let's work on newborn jaundice. So this is another one of these like mind-boggling global problems. So jaundice affects 2/3 of newborns around the world. Of those newborns, 1 in 10 roughly, if it's not treated, the jaundice gets so severe that it leads to either lifelong disability or the kids could even die. There's one way to treat jaundice, and that's what's called an exchange transfusion. So as you can imagine, that's expensive and a little bit dangerous. There is another cure. It's very technological, it's very complex, a little daunting. You gotta shine blue light on the kid. Bright blue light on as much of the skin as you can cover. How is this a hard problem? So you know, I went to MIT, you know, okay, we'll figure that out. So here's an example. This is an overhead phototherapy device that's designed for American hospitals. And here's how it's supposed to be used. So it's over the baby, illuminating a signal patient. Take it out of an American hospital, send it overseas to a crowded facility in Asia. Here's how it's actually used. The effectiveness of phototherapy is a function of light intensity. So these dark blue squares show you where it's effective phototherapy. Here's what it looks like under actual use. So those kids on the edges aren't actually receiving effective phototherapy, but without training, without some kind of light meter, how would you know? We see other examples of problems like this. So here's the neonatal intensive care unit where moms come in to visit their babies. Now, keep in mind that mom maybe just had a C-section. Okay, so that's already kind of a bummer. Mom's visiting her kid. She sees her baby naked, lying under some blue lights, looking kind of vulnerable. It's not uncommon for mom to put a blanket over the baby. From a phototherapy standpoint, maybe not the best behavior. In fact, that sounds kind of dumb, except what we've learned is that there's no such thing as a dumb user, really, is what we've learned. There are only dumb products. We have to think like existentialists. It's not the painting we would have painted, it's the painting that we actually painted. It's the use designed for actual use. How are people actually going to use this? So similarly, when we think about our partner NTTS, they've made some amazing technologies for treating newborn illnesses. So here's an overhead warmer and a CPAP. They're inexpensive, really rugged. They treated 50,000 kids in Vietnam with this technology. But here's the problem. Every doctor in the world, every hospital administrator has seen TV, you know, curse those, whatever, ER reruns. Turns out they all know what a medical device is supposed to look like. They want Buck Rogers. They don't want effective. It sounds crazy, it sounds dumb, but there are actually hospitals that would rather have no equipment than something that looks cheap and crummy. So again, if we want people to trust the device, it has to look trustworthy. So thinking about outcomes, turns out appearances matter. So we took all that information together, we tried this time to get it right, and here's what we developed. So this is the Firefly phototherapy device, except this time, we didn't stop at the concept car. So from the very beginning, we started by talking to manufacturers. Like, our goal is to make a state-of-the-art product that our partner NTTS can actually manufacture. So our goal is to study how they work, the resources that they have access to, so that they can make this product. So that's the design for manufacture question. When we think about actual use, you'll notice that Firefly has a single bassinet. It only fits a single baby. And the idea here is that it's obvious how you ought to use this device. If you try to put more than one kid in, you're kind of stacking them on top of each other. So the idea here is we say you want to make it hard to use wrong. In other words, you want to make the right way to use it, the easiest way to use it. Another example, it's, again, silly mom. You know, silly mom thinks her baby looks cold, wants to put a blanket over the baby. Well, that's why we have lights above and below the baby in Firefly. So if mom does put a blanket over the baby, still receiving effective phototherapy from below. Last story here, I've got a friend in India who told me that you haven't really tested a piece of electronic technology for distribution in Asia until you've trained a cockroach to climb in and pee on every single little component on the inside. You think it's funny. I had a laptop in the P-score, and the screen had all these dead pixels on it. And one day I looked at it, they're all dead ants. That sort of got into my laptop and perished those poor ants. So with Firefly, what we did is, the problem is electronics get hot, and you have to put in vents or fans to keep them cool. In most products, we decided that, okay, I can't put a do not enter sign next to the vent, this kind of thing. We actually got rid of all that stuff. So Firefly is totally sealed. These are the kind of lessons, I mean, as awkward as it was to be a pretty goofy teenager, much worse to be a frustrated designer. So thinking about, okay, what I really want to do is change the world. I have to pay attention to manufacturing and distribution. I have to pay attention to how people are actually going to use a device. I actually have to pay attention. Really, there's no excuse for failure. I have to think like an existentialist. I have to accept that there are no dumb users. There's only dumb products. We have to ask ourselves hard questions. Are we designing for the world that we want? Are we designing for the world that we have? Are we designing for the world that's coming, whether we're ready or not? I got into this business designing products. I've since learned that if you really want to make a difference in the world, you have to design outcomes. And that's design that matters. Thank you.
Okay, now, just before my YouTube starts playing another video at me, let's press X there. Yeah, gut reactions. How do you connect with this video? So you can answer in any way that suits you, whether that's on the mural in a post-it note, that's an anonymous form. Welcome to answer in the chat, or you're welcome to come off mute and share your thoughts. I also have a puppy who is in my life. She's a very adorable golden doodle, and she always has something to say when I facilitate workshops. She likes to add. Okay. Human-centered. Martin, do you mind if I throw it to you? I'm just gonna.
Yeah, you've got it. I thought it was a great idea with the design. My gut reaction, I mean, there's so many, because I'm seeing there's Sam, for instance, I didn't realize design plays such a role. I mean, a person who works, I'll use it. Someone else, Cole mentioned, I love the no dumb users line. I thought it was very interesting in terms of just how they made the design. I guess I'd use the word sleek or appealing or modern. It's interesting to, I guess, make sure that people feel that it is something that that isn't secondhand or isn't maybe donated at hospital, feels like a new product and people are buying into it. And then at the same time, that sleekness made it something where it actually was functional, where you could only place one baby into it, which really was the key point, I think. So it was kind of a great combination of both. I'm seeing some other great comments too from Andrea, a passionate guy that truly wants to make a difference in people's lives. I think that really also speaks volumes to it too, because it showed the process. It, like when I watched this video, it felt like they spent more time in design than they probably, maybe would have done in some other products, or because it really made such a difference and it was really key. Crystal, that human design came from a small idea and can build something big, so big and can save lives.
Olivia, I just see you have your hand up too. Did you want to add something?
I did. I just didn't want to interrupt. So I really liked. It almost felt like it was almost a throwaway line where he's talking about, oh well, I've seen this. I went to MIT. I can do this. So this is a guy who obviously has experience in doing what he's doing, and still to walk us through so many different steps and so many rethinks and shifting of the original idea to make a new. So it's sort of that rapid design prototyping or thinking or whatever it's called. Here's the problem. Okay, I've solved it. But wait, here's the new problem. Okay, now I've solved it. Okay, wait, there's another problem. Now I've solved it. It was interesting to see that someone who we assume is sort of an expert in his field and has lots of experience in doing this still isn't necessarily capable of getting it right the first time, because there is no single answer to problems that are big and complex like the ones that we are all likely about to be tackling in our different co-ops, I guess.
Yeah, I am so grateful for you to share that, because I think you hit the nail on the head. And something I always like to offer is that I believe, as much as human-centered design thinking is a framework to say, these are the steps and this is what you should do, it's also actually a mindset that involves empathy and this ability to fail. And we talk about failure a lot, and what does failure mean and how does that show up? And I have this whole little spiel, which I won't bore you all with, about retaking failure and recognizing that we need to fail in order to learn and grow and do it a little bit better next time. And I really, really love that you hit on this concept of this, I call it iterative failing, where you just go around and you're open to failing and you learn and grow, and hopefully you're getting closer and closer to a solution that will work. So thank you so much for that. The other thing I really wanted to honor in the chat, and it was one of the first ones, was that I forget exactly, but it was that something so small can create such a huge and massive impact on people's lives, which I think is really the point, and why this framework is so beneficial and why there's such a beautiful and clean tie to creating positive change. It's about recognizing these mindsets, recognizing the people that are feeling it, so that when we get it right, it's going to take a while, but when we get it right, it's going to be the right thing for that moment. It might need to be prototyped again in X amount of times, but it's really putting the people at the core of the solution, so you get the right solution. Yeah, the no dumb users line. And I also wanted to honor the thing that Martin started off with. The very first time I watched this video, I remember being like, okay, I'm a pretty socially minded person. I care a lot about people's emotions, and like, it doesn't really matter what things look like as long as they work. Like, I remember having this like full stop moment of, if you want to create positive change, it has to be right on all levels. And that means also this appearance level. When we talk about these socially focused ideas, sometimes we forget how many people really value that ability to look at something and feel that trust immediately. So recognizing that appearance is a huge part in something's success, I think is necessary for it to succeed. There's so much good stuff here. People at the core, yeah. And then, yeah, designing products that sometimes endure hiccups along the way. I love that. Determination, innovation, great design in terms of appearance. Yeah, power, knowledge of how to use it in maintenance. When designing a product, make it simple for all users in appearance and important. Yeah, and I love this concept. It's said a few times in a couple different ways, that his ability to talk about it's not dumb users, it's only dumb problems, but he takes it a step farther to say it's about making the right way the easy way, which I find so beautiful. What is the right way to use this? How do we make it as easy as possible? And one example that I think constantly gets brought up is an iPhone. Like, if these things are great, I love my iPhone, but if you don't know how to use an iPhone and you just stare at it, it's not the most like, do I touch it? Do I triple click it? Do I do this? Do I do this? So really making these products easy. Yeah, I love that. One of my profs said, if you think you did it right the first time, you're probably wrong. I love that line. I might steal that one. Thanks, Cole. Very cool. Anybody else want to speak and share what they think, feel?
I got an example of a design, if you will.
Love it.
So Samsung A8 or something like that as a phone. It's got a bevel along the edge of the phone, so it's more like a weird oval shape, and most people sort of look at that and say, oh, whatever, it's just a bevel. But it's actually meant so that when you drop the phone and it rolls off that edge, off that reinforced edge. So ideally, unlike an earlier iPhone, you drop it and it won't smash the glass instantly. ideally it rolls off that bevel and doesn't take the damage that would shatter your screen. And like, that's kind of the example of like, you know, there's no stupid users, it's just the stupid problem is we drop the phone for whatever reason and the phone still ideally works.
Yeah, I love that, because it's not saying people stop dropping your phones. It's saying, how do we make phones that can be dropped? That's exactly the concept of this framework that we're trying to instill. Beautiful example. Anyone else want to share?
I can go ahead. So many great comments in the chat. So I mean, keep those coming as well. I would say one thing to think about too is I think there's a challenge, because when you look at cars, you look at some products, the phones is one, in a way manufacturers kind of program you into using a certain system. So when I saw this video too, it's also breaking a mold. It's making something new that anyone can use. So I think that's also, and that's just a thought I'm throwing out there, but that's just a challenge, I guess, that you face if you're working in the corporate world. Because if it's something new, great, but if you're working existing things, so, you know, iPhone users are used to iPhones, Android users are used to Android phones, etc. Right? And I mean, that's just more of a thought. You know, if anyone wants to comment on it, that's great. Just something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. So powerful. And I think what blew me away when I first started learning about this framework, and it sounds really rudimentary, so maybe I shouldn't admit this publicly, but I'm going to, is that everything is designed. From your mug to your glasses, to your notebook, to a program, to this session. There's a design element to everything that encounters into your life, that you encounter into your life, excuse me. So really thinking about how do we do that intentionally so we can create the best outcome. That was really, really groundbreaking for me. Yeah, I don't know if that resonates or not. Amazing. So what I would like to offer, and I'm going to summon you guys again, so just bear with me here, because as we know, my mural skills are medium. So in a moment, but not yet, we're going to invite you to go into breakout rooms. I'm going to explain how to use this session, so please don't write in these post-it notes yet. You will be able to when you go into your breakout room, but I just want to keep this one pristine for whichever group gets to be in breakout room 1. So my invitation is we're going to send you in breakout rooms in a moment for about 15 minutes. And I want you to have a conversation in your breakout room about, Timothy is the man from the TED Talk, about Timothy's experience and at what point in his journey did he empathize? At what point in his journey did he define? At what point in his journey did he ideate, prototype, and test? So I will give you one example, but I don't want to give you too many because I don't want to take the juicy conversation from you. But for one example of empathize might be when he went to the hospitals and watched the moms in the NICU. And he watched the moms put the blankets on. So he wasn't necessarily talking to them. He could have, I'm making an assumption, but he was able to empathize with those mothers saying, I recognize that they are putting these blankets on these babies, and that is part of this process. So I need to take that back and build that into my design. And then like if you can think of a couple examples for each part, that would be amazing. And then at the bottom, we've got a section which I just like to call overall thoughts. So if something comes at you and you're like, oh, this is amazing, don't quite know how to fit it, want to add this, you can just check it down there and we can have a conversation about it. Once you do that, we're going to invite you to come back. And as a group, like we're not going to go room by room, but as a group, I would like to open a dialogue about insights, thoughts, feelings about your conversations. Is there insights that you want to share back? So having something prepared is never a bad thing, because again, the more you guys talk, the less I talk, and that's better for everybody. Questions, comments, concerns, jokes, queries, thoughts, emotions about the ask, like about what you're going to do and the conversations you're going to have. if you could you just throw up a reaction about like, are you clear on it? Do you need like whatever reaction resonates with you about, we've got some thumbs up, we've got a fast forward. Not quite sure what that means, but I'm into it. Okay, I will take that. Yeah, so Cole, what's gonna happen? This is my magic trick. I'm gonna send you guys into breakout rooms in just a moment. And in those breakout rooms, you'll probably be in rooms, about 10 rooms of 5 to 6 people per room. So let's say in a moment you see a pop-up that says, I'm gonna send you, or you're being sent to room 6. You accept that invitation. Again, on that right-hand side, you'll see an outline and you'll see a button that says room 6. So if you click that button, it will take you to your own section on the mural where you can fill in and have that conversation with your team. If it says room 2, go to room 2, yada, yada, yada. I hope, does that make sense? Martin, does that make sense to you? Or the, okay, cool. So, breakout rooms, we're gonna go in for 15 minutes. And a countdown, okay. So it's important, you have to accept the invitation to the room. If you don't, I don't know, Zoom becomes difficult. So please accept the invitation. Everyone except Martin. Martin, don't accept your invitation. Okay. On your marks, get set, go. Play on this again. Hello, welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys had a wonderful conversation. It was very riveting and you feel rejuvenated and like you're a little bit confused, a little bit inspired, a little bit clear, but mostly kind of muddy and excited about what this could mean for you in your life. I think that's how I describe feeling and learning everything new. Mix of emotions. I wanted to ask, invite, offer, chat, or what's the word? In person, on mute, off mute. Any big insights, any big learnings, any cool things that you want to share, anything that came in the thoughts that you couldn't place, like anything you want to share? Honestly, I'm confused. Yeah.
I can jump in.
Awesome. Thanks, Olivia.
So a couple of things that our group, we went through sort of each stage and found a couple different things that sort of fit for each one. But then in the overall thoughts, we kind of came up with these two concepts that kind of tie in together. The first being that if it's not a perfect idea if no one's interested in it, which was his first sort of big hurdle that Tim had to get over. And then the other part that sort of ties into that is that in order for human-centered design to be human-centered, we have to involve stakeholders in every single part of the process. Like if we start with empathizing and go, oh, this is what you need, and then go off in whatever direction we think is best without then turning around and saying, what do you think about this idea? It doesn't really help. It just becomes like maybe human-inspired design, but not human-centered, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And is such an important, I always talk about the important nuances. And some nuances are just splitting hairs and some are really important. And I think that is such an important nuance to say that if we are not including the people who are experiencing the problem firsthand in every step, they're not going to be seen in the solution. So even just check-ins and conversations and this conversation about prototype. A prototype is just a fancy, like creative experiment if you're not actually offering it to someone to get their feedback. So really making sure that feedback and conversation and empathy is an important mindset that you are involving in every step. Beautiful. Anyone else? Yeah, Jenin, is that how you say your name?
Yes, it's Janan. Sorry. Our group, just sort of kind of going off of what Olivia said, our group too, you know, with regards, had mentioned about stakeholders, the importance of involving stakeholders, especially like we mostly focused on when, you know, the incubator or whatever you want to call it was put on the front cover of Time magazine. Like, it would have been beneficial for him to have these stakeholders involved, I mean, in the whole process. And those stakeholders too, like, you know, bringing forth like basically capital to make this really happen. So to produce something that was going to be beneficial, because not only do you need the product, but you also need to bring people into these developing countries to educate the healthcare workers, educate the parents so that they understand why it's not a good thing to put a blanket over a baby. So you need all of those people involved.
Yeah, beautifully, beautifully said. Thank you so much. And I'm apologizing for saying your name wrong. Can you just say it one more time?
Janan.
Janan, thank you.
Yeah.
And what I loved, and actually sparks a conversation that Martin and I had over the break, or not break, but as you guys were in your breakout rooms, was this marker of success. If you talk to anyone and say, I got a cover photo shoot on Time magazine, I got a bunch of awards, I got funding, I created this amazing product, lots of people would call that a success. So it really debunks this concept we have of success to say, what does success actually look like for me and for the people who are experiencing the problem? And how do I make sure I am in service of that version of success? Which I really appreciate you sparked on. And Crystal, I see you've got something you want to say, I think.
Yeah, we kind of talked about and bounced off the empathy idea, whereas a lot of people in today's society could think of the education that he had and the abilities he had and the way he created his incubator, that they could think of that as and get this big head. But he put the face to the problem, and he went and visited, and he realized that there was a problem, but he also put the face to that problem and realized that he needed to make it different and better it, instead of just putting a Band-Aid over it and saying, oh, it's a problem, but I'm going to fix it this way. He had more empathy to fix that.
Beautiful point. You guys are really like knocking them out of the park this afternoon. And something that I like to offer, just for sort of throw out there and see if I like to think of throwing spaghetti at the wall. If it sticks, amazing. If it doesn't, no problem. Is this concept of our own ego in design thinking process. So really, like you talked about his education and his stature to be in that space. So what is he doing that's serving him versus what is he doing that's serving the problem and the people who are experiencing that problem. So again, spaghetti, if it sticks, amazing. If it doesn't, no problem. But a question I ask myself all the time, what is this in service of? I think we have time for one or two more comments if people would like to share.
I guess I'll share some ideas from our group. I guess everybody has like the same idea when it comes for the empathize kind of side of this whole video. But I think it was good for him that he created a foundation for himself for this project so he can always fall back onto. But I think what pushed him even more is that what he experienced, like what he saw and what he got from feedback from other people, kind of like motivated him to actually push towards a innovative idea to make it easier for people to use in the future or anything like that. So I think that's like always a good step for any projects, like major projects like that.
So beautifully said, Luke, and very well positioned for the ECE program, which we were able to have this conversation with the ECEs on the call about how actually collaboration, true collaboration and connecting with your peers and your stakeholders and talking about what are your values and how do you treat each other is really building that foundation for this to work. Making sure that you are, really connecting that foundation and that trusting relationship to this process is sort of that secret sauce. So thank you so much for bringing that insight forward. I think it's a really important one. We have time for one more if someone wants to share, but no pressure if you do not. Okay. So if you have done a workshop with me in the past, this is something you may be familiar with. If you haven't, I invite you into a routine that is near and dear to my heart. And something I personally like to end my workshops with is this conversation around intentionality. So we have spent the last hour and 15 minutes having this quite beautiful, insightful conversation about how do we put people at the center of problems and solutions? How do we take our own biases out of it? How do we use empathy, prototyping, failure to make sure that we are finding the right solution? So what I always like to say is this conversation is just a conversation if we leave it here and move on. And that's okay, because you'll get out what you need of it. But this connection to how am I going to act? What intention am I going to put into my daily routine to bring this conversation to life for me? I believe to be the magic of learning and growth. So something I am quite passionate about is this concept of intention cards. So if you will see, I'm going to summon you all. Some people already know how to do this, and that's amazing. I love that. We have decided to use the creativity intention cards today. So you will see that there's 5 intention cards. I will create, I will take action, I will, I can't see this one. I will embrace change, I will express joy, and I will inspire. So when you write an intention card, what is the most important thing to do is to name it. There is research that says that if you put your name on something, you are more likely to do it. So I invite you to grab a Post-it note, put your name on it, put it on an intention card that resonates with you, and write down one tangible action using strong language. I will, I can, I believe, I am, no shoulds, woulds, or coulds here, to say how you're going to fulfill that. So there's examples on each one. The one I always like to use for I will create is today I will make dinner. That is a creation, and that's an important one. So invite you to grab a Post-it note, name it, pick an intention card, and write your own action on how you will do that. As you are doing that, I would really like, yeah, thanks. I think it's this concept of intentions. I could do a whole workshop on the concept of intentionality. And I won't do that to you guys, but I will say it's the spark of change making. It's about taking action. So however that shows up for you, I invite you to do it in a way that, I heard this saying today that I really liked, stretch not tear, that stretches you out of your comfort zone, but is not going to break. So how do we put intentionality behind the actions that we're doing to create a better world when you go to bed than when we wake up in the morning? Ayo, shout out to the very first thing I said, if anyone got that. Okay, so as we sort of begin to wrap up and tie a bow on this beautiful hour and a half that we got to spend together, I think it's always so important to finish these sessions with just the most amount of gratitude towards each and every single one of you guys for showing up and being here and opening your mind and be willing to maybe learn something new, maybe engage in an old concept in a new way, be here for yourself and your classmates, colleagues, connections, whoever that might be, because that is the magic. These sessions, as you continue in Changemaker and Residency Week, are exactly what you make them. If you choose to be passive in it versus choosing to engage in it, you will have a different outcome. So I invite you to think about how you want these sessions to look like for you, what you want to get out of them, and be part of creating that future. So you guys are all incredible humans who have so much to offer this space, each other and this change-making world. So thank you all for being here, and thank you all for being yourselves, being your authentic selves. So beautiful. And then of course, I cannot express gratitude without offering a shout out to my wonderful friend and colleague, Martin Rashawn, for just being the behind the scenes guru of tech and making sure things go smoothly and answering questions. So thank you very much for coming on this wild ride with me today, Martin. I appreciate it.
It was absolutely my pleasure. And yeah, far from a guru of it, but just glad to be part of this session. So amazing. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you. And lastly, like shameless plug, because I cannot finish the session without it. Please make sure that you are checking your Changemaker in Residency schedule. If there is more sessions you would like to attend, please read them and choose ones that speak to your heart, mind, and spirit, not just one of those things. And if you are like, hey, this stuff is cool, want to get more involved with the center, don't be shy. If you haven't yet, please sign up and make your Changemaker portal or Changemaker profile with the center and all of those things. So if you are like, have written down your intention, you feel good, you feel like you've gotten everything out of this session, I invite you to say goodbye and leave. If you have any questions, I'll hang out for another sort of 5 to 10 minutes and answer any questions you might have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Laura and Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Martin, we're so clear that they don't have any questions. This like never happens.
I think it was just a wonderfully interactive session, like great comments. Like, and I think I have to say, I mean, you already had great comments, but the chat was so busy. It was amazing to see.
Hi there. I'm Stephanie.